Yo, what is up, everyone? I hope we are already live. Okay, so this is our first show in our collaboration with Fantasy Six Pack. Shout out to Fantasy Six Pack, the community that you've built for fantasy football and the community that you're building in fantasy basketball. So we are currently in collaboration with Fantasy Six Pack, and we're gonna do a weekly live show for fantasy basketball content. So my name is Papi Roi from Fantasy Basketball PH. If you haven't followed or heard it yet, so check it out via Facebook or Twitter and YouTube. It's called Fantasy Basketball PH. I am from the Philippines, and I've been doing fantasy basketball content for quite some time, probably around 4 years uh, until now. So yeah, so this is going to be fun, and our first show is going to be about. Usually, the plan here is every week we are going to talk about the news, the hype news, the rumors, and all for the current week. But of course, since it's almost trade deadline, so it's better to talk about several names that could gain value um before or until trade deadline. So it's going to be fun because this is where you get an advantage. So whoever picks or whoever assumption in trade deadline happens, then you get an advantage in terms of getting some value out of those players. Let me check. So as you can see in the title, let's start off in talking about Jimmy Butler. So Jimmy Butler has been really asking for a trade in the past couple of days. If we'll go back, this could be rooted because of what Pat Riley mentioned in one of his interview, wherein he didn't like how Jimmy Butler handled again another interview. I think that was Jimmy Butler saying something about if I am playing or something like that. That it could have been different. So Pat Riley mentioned something about well you didn't play and stuff like that. I know you know that news, right? So I think that's the available video or clip that we could actually anchor on the reason why this Jimmy Butler drama started. Right? At least for us fans, that's the visible thing. Internally, maybe it's something that happened long time ago. We don't know, but what we can really make sure of is it's not looking good. And I've just read couple of tweets wherein Jimmy Butler had a meeting with Pat Riley and he's really asking out in the Miami from the Miami Heat. So what does this imply in fantasy basketball? Of course, whenever someone leaves, depending on the trade, there's gonna be an opportunity. How I see it, if it's like a different team, like for example, if it's like Brooklyn or maybe Washington, or even Chicago, it could make sense that they're gonna be more interested with the picks and all. But since Miami is a team that I don't think is investing towards the future like fully, I think they think that they can actually compete now while also developing players. So that's their style. So with that said, I would assume there will be another player coming in return for Jimmy Butler. Okay. So by the way, guys, while we're discussing these topics, if you have any questions, since this is a live Q&A, if you have any questions, point of discussions, just put your comments in the comment section, and we'll definitely gonna talk about it. Okay. Going back, so since we're expecting a player in return, which most probably is going to be Bradley Beal, unless it's a three-team trade, then the players that are currently getting some value in the past couple of games, wherein Jimmy Butler isn't playing, isn't a sure thing. So I'm talking about the likes of Jaime Hackers Jr. I'm talking about the likes of, well, Terry Rozier. to some extent because you know he should have been playing better, but he isn't. Nikola Jovic is another one, and then it's like a domino effect wherein Kelel Ware actually had some good minutes the moment that Jimmy Butler went out, and then apparently, of course, when Bam Adebayo didn't play, Kelel Ware really got more playing time. So there are several. These are the several names who really are the ones that could get value or opportunity the moment Jimmy Butler gets shipped. I could also add Hayward Highsmith just because of his ability to defend. Because Jimmy Butler isn't just their main scorer; he's also one of their best defender, probably their best defender. So if you're losing someone like Jimmy Butler, then someone that can defend in the Miami Heat lineup should always stay on the floor. So I'm looking at Hayward Highsmith getting those minutes, but apparently if you've been playing fantasy basketball, we can't or we aren't really getting a lot of stats or value from Hayward Highsmith, right? But so that's that. So what I'm thinking is if Jimmy Butler gets moved and it's Bradley Beal plus couple of players and picks and all, so basically, the opportunity of the players that we mentioned isn't gonna blossom because it's practically the same thing. It's practically as if like it's Jimmy Butler stayed in Miami. So maybe the dynamics gonna be different since Bradley Beal has more shooting compared to Jimmy Butler, but Jimmy Butler has more defense over Bradley Beal. So that dynamic is something we can actually observe. But in terms of usage, it's practically the same. So it's gonna go back to Triple J or Jaime Hackers Jr. of Miami playing off the bench, and hopefully he's gonna play better and hopefully can average at least triple single or 12 points decent stat line because he wasn't able to do that when Jimmy Butler was healthy this season. Nikola Jovic actually has, if you check the games when Jimmy Butler was present and almost everyone is healthy, he provided better stats over Jaime Hackers Jr. So in terms of role, his role could be more sustainable, I guess. Terry Rozier, on the other hand, is another player that could be traded. So if that's the case, then again we need to wait on who's gonna be the player that Miami is gonna get in return. So usually that's how it works. It's not as if like, hey, Jimmy Butler or Terry Rozier is gonna get traded, and then no one gets, no one is returning from that trade, right? So for sure, Miami will get a player out of it. So those two are the top players that could be dealt, but I can't really see a lot of value here. Shout out to Mark Ryan. So I think he's one of our followers here. Yes, this is like the Jimmy. We were talking about the Jimmy trade scenario, specifically around the fantasy basketball values, right? Because there's a lot of teams that are rumored to be partnering or interested with Jimmy Butler. But as of the moment, the Phoenix Suns is the front runner. I know it's not a guarantee, but the pieces revolving the Jimmy Butler trade between Phoenix Suns and Miami Heat does make sense. In if you check the Phoenix Suns lineup and the previous news and video circulating, you can see Bradley Beal not joining the huddle, and then we have Yusuf Nurkic not playing for not part of the rotation and didn't even play in the past couple of days because of like flu-like sickness. So there are indicators. Not all are guarantees. We can all what we can do is just to speculate, but we have to do it smart, right? So in again in fantasy basketball valuation, I can't really see a big winner here. If there's a big winner after the Jimmy Butler trade, it could be Jimmy Butler himself. Why? Because he isn't really playing very well in the Miami this season. He's been missing a lot of games, and we all know, like remember the James Harden situation before. We all know that players, especially known stars, tend to be like this. Wherein, if they don't want to play in a certain team, they get sick, they get sick, or there's some injuries. So if eventually Jimmy Butler gets traded to the Phoenix Suns and then he becomes healthy for some reason, healthier versus the Jimmy Butler version of Miami, then that's a win for in terms of reality and in terms of fantasy. Other than that, of course, if it's gonna involve Bradley Beal, who didn't have a very good start of the season in the Phoenix Suns and also missed a couple of games, actually not just couple, a lot of games this season, it's the same thing. If he's healthier, then he gets to hopefully um, you know uh, pump his value until the end of the season. Will those both teams guarantee a slot in the playoffs? I'm not sure. Uh, Phoenix Suns maybe, but the Miami Heat, I'm just really not sure. Good thing they're in the Eastern Conference because they can easily be in the play-in tournament. Worst case scenario. So currently, the Miami Heat is ranked number 7 in the Eastern Conference, while the Phoenix Suns is ranked number 10. Well, I thought the Phoenix Suns was around 8 or 9, so I guess Phoenix Suns isn't a sure thing as well. But given that you have Jimmy Butler, you have Kevin Durant, they have better role players right now, and I don't know if they trade Nurkic and whatever they get in return, maybe they get a run after the trade. So yeah, I guess this should be a good trade for both. So I don't want to really. So that's the angle that I wanted to talk about revolving Jimmy Butler because I don't want to, you know, check every team because it could be GSW. They could be interested with Jimmy Butler. It could be the Memphis Grizzlies. The rumors that they're also interested, and it could be my San Antonio Spurs. So there's a lot of things going, but if it's the San Antonio Spurs, who's the best bet? Caldon Johnson, maybe. So yeah, Caldon Johnson is gonna be one of the big winner if that's the case. If it's Golden State Warriors, Jonathan Kuminga, but he's still injured. Um, Memphis Grizzlies, there's a lot of promising young players there, but it's Jimmy Butler, so I'm not sure will they be interested to part ways with Desmond Bain. So there's again, in terms of possibility, I think the Phoenix Suns angle seems to be more realistic. Okay, so again, if you have any questions, just shoot your questions or any point of discussions. Let's talk about that. Speaking of questions, if you haven't joined one of the biggest and probably the biggest fantasy group in Facebook, not in all social media. So check out NBA Fantasy Basketball PH. That's a Facebook group. So you can join that group if you haven't already. There's a lot of you can easily ask questions and be and engage people there. So while we're waiting for someone of you guys to ask questions, let me also check out a couple of questions from that group, right? So maybe you share the same sentiments. So I have here an anonymous member asking a trade. So he's asking thoughts on this trade proposal. 9 categories, 12 teams. So it's Zach Levine and Joel Embiid for Evan Mobley. Okay, so for me, this is a fair trade. Granted that Joel Embiid has a very low value right now. This could be a win on whoever's getting Zach Levine or Joel Embiid. The moment that maybe after All Star break, Joel Embiid plays more games than expected, given that he can easily give you top 5 fantasy value, that's already a win. So he is gonna cover the big man stats that even Mobley is usually providing, right? And then you have a freebie in Zach Lavine. So this is a good trade. This is a good trade in a sense that if the even Mobley side is the one who proposed the trade, then it's a good buy low on Joel Embiid. Especially that most of the fantasy basketball GMs, actually not even in the fantasy basketball world, in NBA community in general, there's a lot of people who are really hating Joel Embiid for not playing and not being healthy, right? And of course for other stuff, antics and all. So that's kind of like a good profiling in terms of buying low, and obviously he wasn't able to play a lot of games in the past couple of weeks, so that's again a good leverage. So yeah, this is a good trade, and I think again, if Joel Embiid gets hurt the whole season, then it's about Zach Levine for Evan Mobley. So this is a fair trade because understanding that maybe the Zach Levine Joel Embiid side is just trading um, risk because both of these players has risk. Zach Levine, even though he's been really healthy for this season, what if he is not traded after the trade deadline? And he goes the James Harden Houston Rockets path, right? Oh, I have an injury or whatnot, and does not play. So there's a lot of risk for Zach Levine and Joel Embiid, and I really understand the allure here why this trade was proposed. So yeah, fair trade. Another trade here. Shout out to Papi Sam Luis. He's asking top or bottom. So these are the trade. These are the players involved. So we have here Danny Avdia, Rudy Gobert, and Alex Sarr. That's two Frenchmen in one bundle. For MPJ and Walker Kessler. Oh, okay. So stats wise, you can easily go with the package number one of the Gobert and Sar. A lot of counting stats in that package. Upside for Danny of the moment that maybe Portland Blazers clear some the backcourt that they have. Maybe and Fernie Simons gets traded. Who knows? Alex Sar, of course, we are expecting him to get more opportunity after trade deadline if the Washington Wizards gets rid of Cal Kuzma or Malcolm Brogdon, right? Or then maybe other and of course Jonas Valanciunas. So there's a lot of potential in those two players. Rudy Gobert is just steady, I guess. But despite those counting stats, very yummy counting stats, both Danny of the Alex are inefficient. They aren't the best scorers in terms of efficiency, and then especially Danny Avdia will definitely give you a lot of turnovers. So that's that. And in return, you'll be getting Walker Kessler and MPJ. MPJ, of course, he doesn't have a lot of turnovers, but he's not doing a lot of things. It's just shooting and jumping, sometimes rebounding, but that's it. Walker Kessler, on the other hand, it's as if like that's the equivalent of Alex Sarr and Rudy Gobert. Thing about Walker Kessler is there's risk here. So if he stays in the Utah Jazz has a couple of players. Potter, I forgot the name. That's his one, and then of course Cal Filipowski, that they might end up showcasing and eventually sit Walker Kessler if he stays. Of course, that's just we're just speculating, but based on in the past couple of seasons, that's how they usually do it. So my thoughts here is I kind of like the Denny of the Alex or Rudy Gobert more, but the catch here is if this team was acquiring this player, badly needs 3 points because that's also important. Because of course, Alex Star is, to be honest, Alex Star is the one who's probably gonna give you more 3 points here. Then you have the Ken, but is not consistent compared to MPJ, who's gonna really shoot as much as he can because that's what he does. Other than that, I think I like the Avdia Gobert Alex Star side more because couple of them has upside towards end of the season. On the other hand, Walker Kessler, though he has an upside, also has a risk. So there's a question mark in his tag compared to the package there we're in. There's lesser risk or lesser question mark. So yeah. What else here? Shout out to Lorenzo Stewart. 20 team Dynasty League, very competitive. Let's see. Oh, he's just offering. Uh, let's move on to the other question. Devin Vassell plus Shadon Sharp for Trey Murphy. Okay. Vassell and Shadon Sharp for Trey Murphy. Interesting. So, if Zion Williamson is out of the picture, I think I could see myself possibly at least entertaining the idea of trying to get Trey Murphy. Just because, we haven't seen him as a starter, and we all know he can score, he can shoot, and he can defend. So I'm kind of like interested on what he can do in that opportunity. But then again, uh, it's not possibly gonna happen because Zion came back. On the other hand, Shadon Sharp has been playing very well, not as efficient as we wanted, but at least in terms of scoring, he's doing that. He doesn't offer more aside from scoring. The defensive stats, especially the steals, isn't consistent yet. He doesn't give you a lot of assists, but so the shade sharp for you. Devin Vassell, on the other hand, as long as he's healthy, he's gonna hit. He can shoot, he can score, he can defend. So to be honest, if it's just Devin Vassell and Tremer P, 1:1, it's already an interesting trade just because of how you see both individual players. Arguably, they could offer the same value. We can actually double check. So let's see. Currently, Vassell is ranked outside the top 100, ranked 110th, while Trey Murphy is rank number 29. So that's a big difference. Thing is, this is season long. So I think Devin Vassell is trending up in the past week. So I'm expecting better values for Devin Vassell. On the other hand, Shadon Sharp is just really gonna hopefully stick on what he's doing because Jeremy Grant is out of the picture. That's a big space for him to thrive. So it is what it is. It's just a matter of like, hey, hopefully Shadon Sharp shoots better. So with that said, since I am a little bit biased with Devin Vassell, I think he can at least battle Trey Murphy in terms of valuation. So you're almost getting Shadon Sharp as a free player here. So I'm gonna go with Devin Vassell and Shadon Sharp here. We have a question here by Dylan Clemens. Moving forward, Shadon Sharp or Anferny Simons? So generally, it should be Anferny Simons. So the main difference between the projection rest of the season is there's a higher chance that Anferny Simons gets traded versus Shadon Sharp. So that's gonna matter. But then again, these are speculation. Uh, if both of them stays in the Portland Blazers, then I'm gonna choose Anferny Simons. If either of them gets traded, it's a tricky equation because we have to know what team is gonna get either of the two. But since we have to choose, so just for the sake of valuation, I'd go with Anferny Simons. So Anthony Simons is ranked 101st currently, and Sharp is ranked 146. So that's the gap between the two. So good question, Dylan. Okay, let's read some more questions since we haven't been getting a lot in the live show. Hopefully, in our show next week, we get more. But this is how it goes. We're gonna really cater all of the questions that you can shoot to us, and then we are going to give you uh, the best answer that we can come up with. Okay. Again, this is a question between a trade of Julius Randle plus Keontae George for Bam Adebayo, 9 cut 18 teams. So this is tricky in a sense of depth because in deeper leagues, obviously, it's kind of like advantageous if you have more depth. And Randall, even though, he is what it is, he doesn't do a lot of things as a big man. I'm kind of like interested with Keontae George and his ceiling the moment that, you know, the floor is his again for the rest of the season. So we've seen this last year, we've seen this in the summer league, and he can really give you goodies the moment he gets opportunity, and hopefully he gets healthy, right? So it's interesting just because it's 18 teams. I usually choose the best player in this kind of trades, so I probably lean more Bama Debayo. But there's a lot of considerations here. Of course, we don't know if what's the lineup of the teams involved. Do they badly need scoring? Do they badly need assist? And are they willing to trade off or punt maybe turnovers, field goals, and some defensive stats? Or they badly need a big man? Because those two perspectives should be considered. But, understanding that we don't know those informations, given that this is a deep league, I think it's a fair trade. And I'd probably consider the Randall Keontae side just because Baum has this value wherein he he has more value because he doesn't sometimes hurt you a lot. So if he doesn't score a lot, if he doesn't block or steal or he doesn't rebound a lot, at least he has good percentages, sometimes good free throws or turnovers. And then with Jimmy Butler possibly out on the Miami Heat, then he's gonna get additional scoring, but this could lead to lesser defensive stats, maybe, and then more turnovers. So if that's the case, again, situational, if you're punting the defensive side, then I'd probably just go with Randall and Keontae. Else, I think it's Bama de Bayo here. So I have two answers, more of both, given that we don't have a lot of context in this trade. Okay, what else? Let's see other questions here. Another trade question. Tyrese Maxey, Chet Holmgren for Cole Anthony, Walker Kessler, and Ant Simons. Hmm. It could be a situation where it's just Tyrese Maxey if Chet Holmgren won't get back, right? So Cole Anthony is a fringe guy. I doubt he can sustain his value, especially the moment that Jalen Suggs comes back, Franz Wagner comes back. By the way, Franz Wagner has a update wherein he's actually progressing better and faster than we expected. So shout out to the owners of Franz Wagner. He could be back sooner than later. Anthony Simons, sure. And then you have Walker Kessler. So yeah, so this is a good trade because it's a gray area. So whenever a trade gets to a gray area, then there's a lot of angles to be considered, which makes it fair. But sometimes the catch is just shouting behind the clouds that is being seen in the current value. Like for example, Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony doesn't have value the moment that uh, the backcourt of Orlando gets healthy. So with that said, I kind of like the Tyrese Maxey side more. Because what if Chet Holmgren comes back? So this is like super win for this package, and Tyrese Maxey is the better and the best value here. So I'm gonna go with the sure value, Tyrese Maxey and Chet Holmgren. Let's roll the dice. I have a question here. Shout out Papi Julius Lau. So he's one of our super follower in our fantasy basketball page. Uh, Follow Fantasy Six Pack, Papi Julius. Every week we'll be doing an English version of our Tambay Friday. So we're gonna do around 30 minutes of it uh, on behalf of Fantasy Six Pack. So the question here is Jimmy Butler for Jalen Brown. Your thoughts? I actually did the same trade. So in one of my what do you call this leagues in fantasy in FVPH leagues. Shout out to the people who joined the gyms who joined the fantasy basketball PH leagues. I accepted the trade, so I'm not the one who proposed the trade. Someone, I forget the name, proposed his Jalen Brown for my Jimmy Butler. I happily accepted the proposal. Again, I don't want to look forward anymore. My team there has a lot of injured players. And my team there needs some wins and needs some healthy body. So easily I accepted the trade and got Jalen Brown. So if ever the situation is different wherein there's more, it's not my team who has a lot of injured players, if it's a healthier player, I think this is a fair trade. I think I'm still gonna lean more on Jalen Brown over Jimmy Butler just because of the uncertainty of Jimmy Butler's health. If you badly need some change and some win, I do understand that let's just swing the bat and go with Jimmy Butler. Fine, we can easily do that. Because again, this is with the assumption that Jimmy Butler's gonna play more on whoever team is gonna be traded to, and possibly show and try to get some vengeance because that's how he is. Remember that Tobias Harris over me, that shows his personality. So he's gonna do and gonna try to prove that he's still Jimmy Butler. So, but then again, that's not an assurance. That's not a guarantee, and that's the reason why generally I'd probably lean more on Jalen Brown just because of the safetiness of Jalen Brown. So probably Jalen Brown. But then again, this is a fair trade. If you're gonna go with Jimmy Butler, call with it. Okay, a lot of Jimmy Butler questions since it's a Jimmy Butler. It's Jimmy Butler's face in front of the post, right? So couple more before we end this episode. So we're gonna do this on a weekly basis moving forward. Again, this is to cater our followers, our Fantasy Six Packs followers from the north, because usually I do this for the Philippines and it's in our native language. So I'm gonna do it for Fantasy Six Pack to cater more audience, especially those who are non-Filipino viewers. So this is for you guys, the followers of Fantasy Six Pack. So I hope you can join us because usually in our fantasy basketball page Friday live show, we usually get around 2K views every session, and it's very engaging. There's a lot of questions and all. So let's try to bring that flavor to Fantasy Six Pack, and let's have fun and talk fantasy hoops. Okay, a couple more questions. Let's talk about some questions from my DMs. So some of them I wasn't able to answer, but this is the opportunity to answer that. So someone, shout out to Papi Clyde, was asking about Aaron Gordon's of the season value. I actually got a lot of Aaron Gordon questions. Because because there's a lot of hat free agents right now, and people are actually checking those players that either are out, still out, or are mediocre. So this is understandable because we can actually put Aaron Gordon in that category. Meaning they wanted some change. Maybe their team isn't really doing well, or maybe if they're on top of the league, then they wanted more. They wanted better players. So this is usually something that happens every season in any league. So with that said, just to answer the question, let's just embrace the fact that Aaron Gordon won't or don't have a lot of upside. So the question for me here is, who's the player you are going to add if you're dropping Aaron Gordon? Because Aaron Gordon can give you steady stats, no upside. Maybe sometimes if some of the players sits, but other than that, none. So if it's just a stream, I might end up sticking with Aaron Gordon unless you really badly need some wins. But if it's someone like, I don't know, Noah Clowney, or a player that has upside, then I could understand the logic that I needed a possible player that could give me better stats than Aaron Gordon. So another thing, if it's deeper, I might end up sticking to Aaron Gordon because you need sure stats if it's a deeper league. If it's shallower, I'm more inclined to shift away from Aaron Gordon and maybe just possibly stream or get upside players. So yeah, that's what I think about Aaron Gordon. What else here? Question between dropping or picking, or sorry, using a waiver wire on Santi Aldama or Tim Hardaway Jr. So since this is a deeper league, 16 team, I don't know if he has the first waiver or waiver wire one, but nonetheless, I think if I have to choose, I'd probably go with Santi over Tim Hardaway Jr. I think Santi has a better fantasy profile. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a specialist and as of the moment just a stream. Um, but if you badly need points, then fine, go with Tim Hardaway Jr. But in terms of versatility, despite playing behind Triple J, Santi Aldama actually gives more or provides better stats over Tim Hardaway Jr. Unless it's threes. Okay. Who else? Last couple of questions. Thoughts on Devin Booker for J Dub? Oh, this is a good question because I like J Dub a lot. So this is a good question because it's just a matter of like really looking at the rankings right now. So if you look at Devin Booker's value, let's see. Devin Booker's currently ranked number 21st, while J Dub is ranked number 26th. So the reason why I thought this is a good question because they offer different stuff. J Dub's gonna provide, you know, like the whole package. He can almost do it all. So he can provide that. While Devin Booker can really give you a lot of scoring, right? So you have to consider the structure of your team right now and the opponents that you have in your league. So whatever advantage you can get, then you choose from Jalen Brown, sorry, from J Dub or Devin Booker. If you're already good, if your team is already good across the boards, and then you need some scoring, then it's an obvious choice. It's going to be Devin Booker. If it's about getting more assists, more defensive stats, then again, it's an obvious choice. It's J Dub. The only problem here is if you're just trading just for the sake of trading. So that usually is the problem because it's just about really upgrading. But to be honest, that's a misconception because you might end up getting a good player, but if it doesn't fit your team or your structure, then it doesn't make sense. It might end up not giving you wins, right? And probably give you losses instead. So you have to really, sit down and review your team if it matches the build. So, but generally, I'd go with J Dub. Last question before we end the show. Papi, Jan, Hapa. Pops thoughts on OG Anunoby and Keontae George for Walker Kessler. Ooh. Well, these are three different positions, Pops. So usually in trades, the priority there is the benefit. So if you badly need some big, and the Walker Kessler is the lone big that is available for trading, then it's fine because you're getting what you want. You're getting what you need. So for me, as long as it's not Jokic for Kessler or Wemby for Kessler, it should be a fair trade. As long as you're getting what you want. If you're getting OG or Keontae, I would assume that you wanted more snipes, more scoring, and then you have a good big man stats already because you're trading away Walker Kessler. So again, if you're benefiting from this trade, then it's a fair trade for me. So usually that's how I see trades in general, all trades. It's all about the benefit. So that's the first layer. The second layer is of course um, the advantages of getting both and the disadvantages. So advantages in terms of OG Ananobi, he's getting a lot of minutes. He's not getting usage consistently though, but he can do that. So if it's a head-to-head format, then it's fine. Because even though you're just gonna score 10 points, 12 points, 2 steals, 1 snipe, at least there's a possibility that maybe tomorrow or maybe the next day he's gonna score 27. He's gonna shoot 6 snipes. So that's fine with me for OG and OB. Keontae is the same, but Keontae's value really relies on his value towards end of the season. So it's as if like you're preparing for fantasy playoffs. Thing is, it's not really a guarantee. That's how I see it. But I'm also thinking it could be different this season. Last season it went that way. This season they also have other younger players to play around, to explore, right? So Utah just might break her heart and break Keontae George's owner's heart. But again, these are speculation. I'm just really trying to safety. So those are the pros and cons. Walker Kessler, on the other hand, Walker Kessler is a very good fantasy player as long as he's playing and getting big minutes. So that's it's pretty straightforward. So the disadvantage there is again he's from the Utah Jazz, similar to Coyante. So what if he's not traded and Utah Jazz sits him and plays other big men more towards the end of the season? So there's risk there. So with that said, so we eliminate two Utah Jazzes here. If I'm not considering what you really need in your team, then I might end up choosing OG Ananobi and Keontae George's side. Just because of OG Ananobi. At least you have a sure body. You have a sure thing. So I'm gonna go with OG and Keontae here. Okay, so I guess that's it, at least for this episode. I hope you liked it. If you weren't able to join us live and you weren't able to watch it live, feel free to check the replay. We talk about mostly Jimmy Butler. There's several questions about Jimmy Butler, but we also covered several trade scenarios and some questions from the group. So shout out to NBA Fantasy Basketball page Facebook group. So you haven't joined that, join it. If you haven't, check our content at Fantasy Basketball page, Fantasy Facebook page. Check it as well. You can find me there. I'm also available via Twitter at NBA Fantasy Papi, and this is gonna happen every week. So see you again next week. Most likely earlier, probably around Monday instead of Wednesday. So to our avid followers following the page, Fantasy Six Pack will continue to provide football content, but we'll be starting to provide fantasy basketball content moving forward. And to the fantasy basketball PH community, we'll be doing this. This is similar to our Friday live Q&A, right? So this it's the only difference is I'm gonna speak in English. That's the only thing. Other than that, all good. There's several good games for today. I hope you win your leagues. Shout out to DFS, Daily Fantasy, Philippines. So those who are living in the Philippines, try it out. There's a lot of good prices available for you if you play it. That's currently our lone fantasy sport gaming app in the country. So let's support Daily Fantasy. Again, shout out to the Fantasy Basketball page community. This is Papi Roi in the house. Shout out to Six Pack. Shout out to Joe Bun for hooking me up. See you again next week, guys. Always choose peace. Bye.